have you heard of this French lady called Marie Antoinette? She tried, she wasn't popular. She was in the old regime. She didn't know that she needed to rescind power when it's her time. So have you heard of this French thing called the guillotine? Where there's this blade, and then where if you chop the rope off, the blade will come down and your head will be gone. But then if you look at your eyes with your head, you can see the last thing that you see in your eyes. That kind of thing. And so Long Yu was just kept boiling down, right? And so Pu Yi had no idea. It was it's so boring. And so Long Yu decided that day that, okay, if need be, I would abdicate. Okay? When Yuan Shikai was at least from a traditional Chinese perspective, was in a very passive position because he couldn't just tell the Empress Dowager to abdicate because that's disloyal. The worst thing that a Confucian scholar can do, or Confucian official can do. He was a scholar. And what's interesting is as he was walking, he was going home in his car, there was this terrorist attack by revolutionaries where they had 3 bombs to bomb Yuan Shikai. 2 went off, killing his subordinates. The one that was under his carriage did not go off. And his driver, great driver, probably better than Archduke Ferdinand's driver, just 3 years later, just kept on going, right? Just kept on going, and so he survived. But when he survived, he realized this is a great opportunity because now I can just say, I'm not going to go to see you, Long Yu, because I'm in danger. And then he's thinking, okay, if the revolutionaries are really killing people in Beijing, maybe I can use some help. And now, so this is nobody knows what's truth. Because 10 days later, Liang Bi was going home. Suddenly there was a revolutionary suicide bomb attack and bombed his leg, and he injured his leg. His leg exploded. He just wrapped around his leg. His left leg exploded. He was in the hospital. Okay, his leg was injured. Okay, this is the most important thing. 2 days later, he died. Apparently, and they say, Yuan, and I want to put it here because later this is going to be useful. Yuan's personal secretary, Zhao, the founder of the Chinese police system, actually, went and visited Liang Bi and gave him some Chinese medicine to put on his leg. So we just don't know. We just don't know. You can't tell.
It could have been poisoned.
He could have been poisoned, but then I'm not a doctor. But then if your leg is injured, chances are you won't die. But anyway, in any case, he died, and everybody was scared because he was actually the only competent person. He actually studied in Japan, in the military school, and so all the other aristocrats they fled to Tianjin because Tianjin was part of just like any other age in China. Whenever you have a problem, you go to an Anglo-Saxon place. So Tianjin was one of those places. And as going on during the war, it was by Duan, right? Duan, obviously, at the behest of Yuan, started coming back or sending telegraphs back to Beijing and telling Long Yu, beneath me there are 46 generals who believe that the republican system is the system for China. And I hope you agree. And if you don't agree, what we could do is the 46 of us can come to Beijing and explain to you why the republican system is more appropriate for China. And so Long Yu understood. On February 12, 1912, China abdicated. The Qing abdicated, thus ending a imperial political system that began by the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, in 221 BC. So 2,000 years of the imperial system ended like that. What was extremely ironic and interesting was the person who wrote the document for the application of the Qing, for the Qing was a guy called Zhang Jian. He was actually one of the first industrialists. He came top in the imperial exams in 1894, during the year of the first Sino-Japanese War. So the person who studied loyalty his whole life ended up writing this document. Another interesting thing is, if you read the actual text of the document, it actually says that obviously comes from the perspective of the Qing court, and says, this is not the time for us to be here anymore. So now, Yuan Shikai, you go and do what is right, which is the Republican system. So the Republican system, it's actually a very technical and very important detail, and from Yuan Shikai's perspective, and that is, this Republic of China did not come from the revolution. This Republic of China came from me, Yuan Shikai, telling the Qing court that they are out of date. And so they realized that it should be a republican system, and that's why they gave the right to me. That's called Shanyang. Shanrang. Shan. Which is an ancient Chinese system where, in the early emperors, if my son is no good, I give my emperor role or my throne to someone who is better. And so if you study, whenever there's any kind of change in regime from one dynasty to another, it's called Shan. And so you can think of this as that's why the flag is different from the Republic of China now, right? That flag is 5 colors, which represents Han Chinese, Manchurian Chinese, Mongolian Chinese, Tibetan Chinese, and Xinjiang Chinese. So Hui, Uyghurs.
How Republican was the Republic?
Oh, so this is the second half of the talk.
Oh.
And so, as Yuan forced the Qing to abdicate on February 12th, on February 15th, Sun, honoring what he said, gave the title of presidency, gave the presidency to Yuan Shikai, and they had this Congress in Parliament in Nanjing, and everybody decided that yes, Yuan Shikai should be the president. And a few months later, in the summer of 1912, Sun Yat-sen went to visit Yuan Shikai. It's amazing, these two big shots, meeting finally. Like for the longest time, Yuan Shikai was actually commissioned to arrest Sun Yat-sen, right? But Yuan Shikai did an amazing thing. He opened Zhengyangmen, which is the gate. At the time, Beijing still had gates. They opened the gate where only the head of state was allowed to come in from that gate. He used that gate for Sun to come in. And then Sun stayed in the palace that he was living in Zhongnanhai, where the Chinese leadership are living in right now. And in the next fortnight, they met numerous times, like 13, 14 times. And many times, like, until very late. I know how they talked because Sun, if you listen to any of his YouTube videos, his Mandarin is probably below average of a Hong Kong person. So I don't know how they communicated, but they did. They talked for many hours. And Sun being Sun, did the very, said the very idealistic thing. For the next 10 years, the President Yuan, you will do what you do best. You go and create a 1 million strong Chinese army, and I'm going to build 100,000 miles worth of railroads. And so how unrealistic is this? In 2010. China had 60,000 kilometers of railroads.